When we last checked on Shadow and Kaydee, friends of Big Bear Valley had jokingly called Kaydee Shadow's Shadow. Well, a few more days have passed, and Kaydee certainly doesn't seem to be going anywhere. In fact, something that happened in my last update has now happened again. And be sure to stay to the end of this video because I definitely have a surprise that I think you will want to see and that you will love. So on August 20th and 21st, Kaydee was continuing to settle into the territory. Friends of Big Bear Valley reported that Shadow was enjoying the Twin Pines while Kaydee was seen in the lower portion of the nest tree, and then she entered the nest. By the following morning, Kaydee was apparently in the roost tree and gave a morning chortle before moving to the cactus snag and later to the Twin Pines. Friends of Big Bear Valley specifically noted that the Twin Pines seemed to be becoming a favorite perch for Kaydee. So what we see here is Kaydee isn't merely following Shadow around. Kaydee is independently using several of the established locations within the habitat on her own. And we also notice that Kaydee keeps returning to the nest. Kaydee returned to the nest again on August 23rd, while Shadow apparently remained at the roost tree. And Kaydee spent time there doing crop drops, surveying the area, and investigating the camera dome. What I find very interesting is that Kaydee doesn't only come to the nest when Shadow does. Kaydee is now visiting the nest independently. And Shadow and Kaydee apparently spent another night together because on August 23rd, we had Shadow and Kaydee in the same place where observers had left them the previous evening, and the two greeted with their morning vocalizing. So what we know is that they're still roosting in proximity and they're still vocalizing together. And the big update here is that Shadow's shadow happens again because later that day, Shadow was on the lookout snag while Kaydee was at the cactus snag. Shadow took off and Kaydee followed away about 2 seconds later, just like last time. Last time, Shadow had left the Twin Pines and then 2 seconds later, Kaydee followed. And that's the part that immediately caught my attention because that's how she got referred to as Shadow's shadow, and yet she's again being Shadow's shadow. So what has actually changed since the last update? This is what led me to make another update video here. Then we had Kaydee spending increasing amounts of time with Shadow. Now we have Kaydee remaining in the habitat, continuing to use Shadow's familiar perch and roost areas, while now independently visiting the nest and continuing to vocalize around Shadow. And she once again, 2 seconds after, followed Shadow, being Shadow's shadow. But I still want to be clear that none of this actually proves that they're becoming mates. It is simply more evidence that Kaydee's presence around Shadow wasn't just a 1 or 2 day occurrence. And I've had a lot of comments that are saying, why do you keep saying we don't know for sure that she's female? They're obviously behaving like a male and a female. And I agree that they are, but until we actually see them mate or we see her lay eggs, we can't absolutely positively say that Kaydee is a female. I do agree that she's behaving as a female and that Shadow is behaving with her as a male and a female. But I don't want to speculate and say things that later on are going to come out as false. I'm trying to err on the safe side, the honest side, as a person of integrity. But ultimately, every few days that Kaydee remains in Big Bear gives us another little piece of this story. We still don't know whether Kaydee's going to stay. And like I said, we don't know positively that Kaydee is a female. And we don't know what this relationship with Shadow will ultimately become. For now, all we can do is exactly what Friends of Big Bear Valley is doing. We can watch, we can take notes, and we can let the eagles tell their story. Now, I promised you a surprise at the ending, and I was so excited when I found this that I had to add this on here and share it with you. And it is a picture of Kaydee when she was very young. Says it was taken in 2022. This might be when they actually banded her, but I don't know that for sure. but it is definitely when she's young. And I thought it was so adorable that I wanted to share it with you all. Again, thank you so much for joining me. Please make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss the next update in this series. I hope you have a great day, and God bless you.